Have you ever felt emotionally drained after talking to someone? Do you find yourself doubting your worth around certain people? Are you constantly giving your trust to those who don't deserve it? If any of this sounds familiar, this video is for you. Today, we're exploring 9 types of people who don't deserve your trust or respect through the lens of Stoic philosophy. Understanding these patterns will not only help protect your peace, but also sharpen your judgment about who truly belongs in your life. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Here, we train the mind to grow stronger, calmer, and wiser every single day. 1. The emotional manipulator. The emotional manipulator is perhaps one of the most insidious figures we encounter in our social landscape. They are masters of disguise, often appearing initially as charming, empathetic, and incredibly supportive individuals. They draw you in with a carefully crafted persona, making you feel seen, understood, and valued. This initial phase, sometimes known as love bombing or intense idealization, serves a crucial purpose. It builds a foundation of trust and emotional dependency. You feel you found a kindred spirit, someone who truly gets you. It's precisely this carefully constructed foundation that makes their subsequent actions so damaging and confusing. Once they sense you are sufficiently attached or invested, the subtle shift begins. Their tactics are varied but share a common goal: to control your emotions, thoughts, and actions for their own benefit, often without regard for your well-being. Praise, once freely given, might become conditional or laced with subtle barbs designed to keep you slightly off balance, seeking their approval. Encouragement can morph into a form of control, where the support is offered only if you follow the preferred path or make decisions that align with their interests. They might employ guilt tripping, making you feel responsible for their feelings or problems. I wouldn't be so stressed if you hadn't. Gaslighting is another common tool, where they deny your reality, twist facts, or minimize your feelings, causing you to question your own memory, perception, and sanity. That never happened. You're being too sensitive. I was just joking. The impact of prolonged interaction with an emotional manipulator is profoundly destabilizing. You find yourself walking on eggshells, constantly trying to anticipate their moods and reactions. Self-doubt becomes a constant companion, as your own judgment is repeatedly undermined. You may feel confused, anxious, and emotionally exhausted, drained by the constant need to navigate their unpredictable behavior and hidden agendas. Trust erodes, not just in them, but potentially in your own ability to gauge people accurately. They create an emotional roller coaster, pulling you close with affection and pushing you away with criticism or withdrawal, keeping you perpetually striving for the good phase that first drew you in. Stoicism offers potent antidotes to the poison of emotional manipulation. At its core, Stoicism teaches the importance of maintaining our prohairesis, our faculty of choice, our rational judgment, free from the undue influence of external factors and volatile emotions. Epictetus reminds us repeatedly that while we cannot control others' actions or intentions, we have absolute control over our own judgments and responses. People are not disturbed by things, but by the views they take of them. When faced with a manipulator, the Stoic approach is to first recognize that the turmoil they create originates not directly from their actions, but from our interpretation and reaction to those actions. The first Stoic defense is vigilance of impressions, prosoke. We must carefully examine the impressions bombarding us. Does this person's praise feel genuine, or does it serve a purpose? Is their criticism constructive, or is it designed to undermine? Does their emotional display seem authentic, or is a performance intended to elicit a specific response from us? This requires stepping back from the immediate emotional impact and engaging our rational mind. Ask yourself, what is actually happening here, stripped of the emotional charge? Secondly, Stoicism emphasizes emotional regulation. Manipulators thrive on provoking strong emotional reactions: guilt, fear, obligation, insecurity. A Stoic strives to respond with reason rather than reactivity. This doesn't mean suppressing emotions, but understanding their root, often a judgment we've made, and choosing a response aligned with virtue and reason. When they attempt a guilt trip, recognize the tactic for what it is: an attempt to control, and refuse to accept the unwarranted responsibility. When they gaslight, hold fast to your own reasoned perception of reality, even if you don't engage in a futile argument. Thirdly, setting clear boundaries is crucial. This is an act of self-respect and practical wisdom. Boundaries are not about controlling the other person, but about defining what behavior you will and will not accept in your space. Clearly and calmly state your limits. I am not comfortable discussing that. I will not be spoken to in that tone. I need time to think about this alone. A manipulator will likely push against these boundaries. The Stoic response is to uphold them consistently, without excessive anger or explanation. This is where the virtue of courage comes into play. Finally, Stoicism teaches us to ground our self-worth internally, in our character and choices virtue, not externally, in the approval or disapproval of others. The manipulator's tactics lose their power when their validation is no longer the prize you seek. Your peace, your tranquility, apatheia, or freedom from disturbing passions comes from within, from living in accordance with reason and virtue. Recognizing an emotional manipulator is the first step. Applying Stoic principles allows you to observe their behavior with clarity, manage your own responses effectively, set firm boundaries, and ultimately protect your inner citadel from their attempts to breach it. Choosing logic over the emotional chaos they sow is not just a defense mechanism. It's an affirmation of your own autonomy and commitment to living a rational, virtuous life. 2. The constant critic. We all encounter criticism throughout our lives. Constructive feedback, offered thoughtfully and with a genuine intention of helping us improve, is a valuable gift. However, the constant critic offers something else entirely, a relentless barrage of negativity, fault-finding, and judgment disguised, often poorly, as helpfulness or honesty. This individual seems to possess an unerring radar for flaws, perceived or real, and feels compelled to point them out, often publicly and without solicitation. Whether you've achieved a significant milestone, completed a challenging project, or simply shared a piece of good news, their response is predictably deflating. That's nice, but did you consider? You could have done it better. Are you sure that's the right way? Even a gold medal performance, as the saying goes, would likely elicit a comment about technique or the competition's weakness. The constant critic operates from a place that rarely involves genuine concern for your growth. Their motivations can be complex and varied, often stemming from their own deep-seated insecurities, envy, or need to feel superior by diminishing others. By constantly pointing out flaws in others, they may be attempting to distract from their own perceived shortcomings or to establish a sense of control and authority in their interactions. They might wrap their negativity in phrases like, "I'm just being honest," "I'm only trying to help," or "Don't be so sensitive," using these disclaimers to deflect responsibility for the impact of their words and to frame any negative reaction you might have as your own failing. Their criticism is often vague, nonspecific, or focused on aspects outside of your control, making it impossible to address constructively. It's less about providing actionable feedback and more about maintaining a critical stance. Interacting regularly with a constant critic is like enduring a slow erosion of confidence and self-esteem. Their persistent negativity chips away at your sense of accomplishment and competence. You might start to second-guess yourself, internalize their criticisms, and hesitate to share your successes or ideas for fear of inviting another negative assessment. This can lead to increased anxiety, self-doubt, and a reluctance to take risks or pursue goals. The emotional toll is significant. It's draining to be constantly braced with negativity, and it can foster feelings of resentment, frustration, and inadequacy. You might find yourself minimizing contact or becoming guarded and defensive in their presence, which can strain relationships further. Stoicism provides a robust framework for navigating persistent negativity of the constant critic. The cornerstone is, once again, the dichotomy of control. Epictetus powerfully articulated that external events, including other people's opinions and words, are outside our direct control. What is within our control is our judgment about these things and our response to them. The constant critic's words are external. They are merely sounds or symbols until we assign meaning and value to them. Their opinion, however harshly expressed, cannot harm our inner self unless we consent to it by judging it as harmful or true. Therefore, the first Stoic practice is to filter impressions carefully. When the critic speaks, pause before reacting emotionally. Ask yourself, is this criticism based on objective fact? Is it offered constructively? Is the source credible and genuinely invested in my well-being? Or do they have a pattern of negativity? Marcus Aurelius advised himself, "Say to yourself in the early morning, I shall meet today ungrateful, violent, treacherous, envious, uncharitable men. All of these things have come upon them through ignorance of real good and evil, but I cannot be injured by any of them, for no one can fix on me what is ugly." Recognizing that the critic's behavior often stems from their own issues, their ignorance of real good and evil helps depersonalize the comments. Their negativity is a reflection of their inner state, not an objective measure of your worth. Secondly, learn to separate useful feedback from noise. Not all criticism is invalid, even from a chronic critic. A Stoic values truth and self-improvement. Assess the content of the criticism rationally. Is there a kernel of truth that, stripped of the negative delivery, could be helpful? If so, extract it dispassionately and consider it. If the criticism is vague, malicious, or clearly projection, recognize it as noise, external chatter that does not deserve entry into your inner citadel. You can acknowledge their comment politely without internalizing it. "Thank you for your perspective. I'll think about that." And then mentally discard it. Thirdly, focus on your internal scorecard. Stoicism teaches that true worth comes from living virtuously, acting with wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance, not from external validation or the avoidance of criticism. Cultivate self-awareness about your own actions, intentions, and progress. If you know you have acted to the best of your ability and with good intent, the critic's unfounded negativity holds less power. Your self-assessment based on your values becomes more important than their external assessment. As Seneca suggested, we should live as if someone is always watching, but that someone should ideally be our own rational, virtuous self. Finally, exercise wisdom in choosing your company. While Stoics aim to act justly towards everyone, they also recognize the importance of surrounding oneself with virtuous influences. If someone consistently drains your peace and undermines your confidence with relentless criticism, it is wise to limit your exposure to them. This isn't about avoiding all disagreement, but about protecting your tranquility and focus. Setting boundaries might involve limiting the time spent with them, steering conversations away from topics that invite criticism, or, in persistent cases, choosing to distance yourself from the relationship. Your peace of mind is a valuable asset, and it's reasonable and prudent to protect it from those who seem determined to disrupt it. By applying these Stoic principles, you can neutralize the impact of the constant critic, maintaining your inner calm and self-respect even in the face of their negativity. 3. The gossip addict. In the intricate web of human social interaction, information flows constantly. Sharing news and stories is natural, even necessary. However, there exists a type of person for whom the currency of social interaction is not connection or shared experience, but rather the illicit trade of personal information, speculation, and rumor. The gossip addict. These individuals seem to possess an insatiable appetite for knowing the private details of others' lives, their struggles, their mistakes, their secrets. They often present themselves as being in the know, weaving intricate narratives about colleagues, friends, neighbors, or even acquaintances. They might approach you with a conspiratorial whisper, "Did you hear about?" or preface their tales with disclaimers like, "I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but," creating a false sense of intimacy and shared confidence. The allure of gossip can be tempting. It can make us feel included, part of an inner circle, or momentarily superior to the person being discussed. The gossip addict plays on this, offering juicy tidbits as a way to gain social capital, attention, or forge alliances. However, their engagement is rarely benign. The information they share is often unverified, exaggerated, or taken out of context. Their primary motivation isn't usually concern for people involved, but rather the thrill of disclosure, the power of holding secret knowledge, or perhaps a way to deflect attention from their own lives or insecurities. They thrive on drama and negativity, often fanning the flames of conflict or misunderstanding by selectively sharing information. The most critical realization when dealing with a gossip addict is a simple, immutable law of social dynamics. If they readily gossip to you about others, they will just as readily gossip about you to others. The trust they seem to offer by sharing secrets is entirely illusory. It's not based on respect or loyalty, but on their need for an audience and fresh material. Sharing your own vulnerabilities, secrets, or even neutral personal information with a gossip addict is akin to handing them ammunition they will inevitably use when your back is turned. Their loyalty is not to individuals, but to the process of gossiping itself, participating in their rumor mill. Even passively by listening without objection, implicates you in the negativity and potentially damages your own reputation as someone who engages in or condones such behavior. Stoicism offers clear guidance on navigating interactions with gossip addicts, emphasizing integrity, mindful speech, and the protection of one's inner peace. The Stoics viewed unnecessary or malicious talk as a sign of a disordered mind, a distraction from the pursuit of virtue and tranquility. Epictetus cautioned against idle chatter and focusing excessively on the affairs of others. Let silence be your general rule, or say only what is necessary and in few words. Avoid likewise an endeavor to excite laughter or admiration, for this is a slippery point, which may throw you into vulgar manners. The first Stoic principle to apply is mindful speech and listening. Be conscious of the conversations you participate in. When someone initiates gossip, recognize it for what it is, often empty noise detrimental to both the subject and the participants. You have the choice not to engage. You can politely redirect the conversation. I'm actually more focused on finishing this project right now, or let's talk about something more positive. Offer a non-committal response that doesn't encourage further disclosure, I see, or simply state your discomfort. I'm not really comfortable discussing other people's private matters. This requires the virtue of courage, the courage to potentially break social conformity and refuse to participate in a common but often harmful activity. Secondly, guard your inner world and your trust. Stoicism teaches that trust, like respect, should be earned, not given freely. Recognize that individuals who demonstrate a lack of discretion and respect for others' privacy are unlikely to safeguard yours. Be discerning about what personal information you share and with whom. The gossip addict has clearly shown they lack the integrity required for genuine confidence. This isn't about becoming secretive or paranoid, but about exercising prudence, wisdom, in your disclosures. Your thoughts, feelings, and personal life details are valuable. Share them with those who have proven themselves trustworthy through consistent action and character. Thirdly, focus on your own business. Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself to focus on his own actions and judgments, rather than getting entangled in the faults or affairs of others. How much time he gains who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does or thinks, but only at what he does himself, to make it just and holy. Too engaging in or listening to gossip pulls your attention away from what truly matters, your own duties, your personal growth, your peace of mind. It fills your mind with negativity and speculation, disturbing your tranquility. By consciously choosing to focus on your own responsibilities and self-improvement, you starve the gossip mill of your attention and energy. Furthermore, consider the lack of integrity inherent in gossip. Stoicism places paramount importance on virtue, including justice, treating others fairly and with respect. Gossiping is inherently unjust. It often involves speaking ill of others behind their backs, spreading unverified information, and potentially causing harm to their reputation and well-being without giving them a chance to respond or defend themselves. Associating closely with someone who habitually engages in this demonstrates poor judgment and can reflect negatively on your own character. Choosing not to participate is an act of integrity and aligns with the Stoic ideal of living justly. In essence, dealing with a gossip addict requires recognizing the pattern, understanding the underlying lack of integrity, and consciously choosing not to participate. Protect your peace by refusing to consume or spread negativity. Guard your trust by sharing selectively with those who have earned it. Focus your energy on your own path and actions. By refusing to invite the chaos of gossip into your life, you uphold Stoic principles of mindful speech, justice, and the preservation of your own inner tranquility. You demonstrate that your social interactions are built on a foundation of respect and substance, not on the fleeting, toxic thrill of rumor. 4. The fair weather friend. Friendship in its ideal form is a source of strength, comfort, and mutual support, a bond that endures through both sunny days and stormy nights. However, not all relationships that with a label of friendship live up to this ideal. One particularly disappointing and untrustworthy figure is a fair weather friend. This is a person who is enthusiastically present, often front and center, when your life is going well. They celebrate your successes, enjoy your generosity, bask in the reflected glow of your achievements, and readily partake in the fun times. They are the life of the party when the party is yours, always available when invitations involve pleasure, excitement, or personal gain for them. The defining characteristic of the fair-weather friend, however, lies not in their presence during good times, but in their conspicuous absence during difficult ones. When challenges arise, perhaps a job loss, a health crisis, a family emergency, a personal failure, or simply a period of emotional struggle, they suddenly become scarce. Calls go unanswered, messages are left unread. Invitations for simple, low-key support are met with vague excuses or outright silence. Their vibrant enthusiasm evaporates, replaced by distance and disengagement. It becomes painfully clear that their connection to you is conditional, predicated on your ability to provide positive experiences, status, or benefits. When the weather of your life turns stormy, they seek shelter elsewhere, unwilling to share the burden or offer genuine support. The impact of realizing a supposed friend operates on such conditional terms can be deeply hurtful and disillusioning. It breeds feelings of betrayal, loneliness, and doubt about the authenticity of the connection you thought you shared. Discovering that someone's presence in your life was contingent on your prosperity or happiness can make you question your judgment and feel used or exploited. It underscores a difference between companionship based on convenience and connection built on genuine care and loyalty. This experience can be particularly painful because it often comes to light precisely when you are most vulnerable and in need of support, magnifying the sense of isolation. Stoicism offers valuable perspective and guidance for identifying and dealing with fair-weather friends, emphasizing the nature of true connection and the importance of inner resilience. The Stoics understood that genuine relationships should be based on mutual respect, goodwill, and shared virtue, not on fleeting external circumstances like wealth, status, or temporary happiness. Seneca, in his letters, often discussed the qualities of true friendship, highlighting loyalty, honesty, and the willingness to support friend in adversity as essential components. He cautioned against friendships based merely on utility or pleasure, as these are inherently unstable and dissolve when utility or pleasure ceases. The first Stoic lesson is to assess relationships based on character and consistency, not just shared pleasure. While enjoying good times together is a natural part of friendship, pay attention to how individuals behave across a spectrum of circumstances. Does their support extend beyond celebrations? Do they show genuine interest in your well-being, even when there's nothing obviously in it for them? Do they demonstrate loyalty and reliability over time? A Stoic values virtue above all else. Look for signs of virtue, kindness, integrity, loyalty, courage in your friends, especially during challenging times, yours or theirs. These qualities are the bedrock of trustworthy relationships. Secondly, manage your expectations and understand the dichotomy of control. You cannot control whether someone chooses to be a true friend or a fair-weather one. Their actions stem from their character and choices, which are external to you. What you can control is your assessment of their character based on their actions, and your decision about how much trust and emotional energy you invest in that relationship. Expecting unwavering loyalty from someone who has consistently demonstrated conditional presence is setting yourself up for disappointment. Recognize their behavior for what it is, a reflection of their limitations, rather than taking it as a personal failing on your part. Thirdly, cultivate inner resilience and self-sufficiency. While virtuous friendships are preferred and different and add great value to life, Stoicism teaches that our ultimate well-being, eudaimonia, depends on our inner state, our virtue, not on external relationships. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to rely on his inner citadel. Knowing that your peace and strength come primarily from within reduces the sting of disappointment when external support falters. This doesn't mean isolating yourself, but rather understanding that while true friends are a blessing, your fundamental capacity to navigate hardship resides within your own character and reason. Fourth, value true support and reciprocate it. Stoicism reminds us to appreciate and nurture genuine connections. When you identify friends who do stand by you during difficult times, cherish and reciprocate that loyalty. These are the relationships worth investing in deeply. Their presence during storms is a far greater testament to their character than mere attendance at celebrations. Recognize that true friendship involves mutual support. Be the kind of steadfast friend you wish to have. This aligns with the Stoic virtue of justice, giving others their due, including loyalty and support to those who demonstrate genuine friendship. Finally, exercise prudence in future investments. Learning from experience with a fair-weather friend involves adjusting your level of trust and reliance accordingly. It doesn't necessarily require dramatic confrontation or cutting ties completely, unless their behavior is actively harmful, but it does mean recognizing the limits of the relationship. Don't count on them for deep emotional support or help in a crisis. Reserve your deepest trust and vulnerability for those who have proven their capacity for loyalty and empathy through difficult times. This discerning approach protects your emotional resources and aligns with the Stoic ideal of applying wisdom to social interactions. By focusing on character, managing expectations, building inner strength, and valuing true loyalty, you can navigate the disappointment of fair-weather friends and cultivate relationships grounded in the more enduring qualities championed by Stoicism. 5. The narcissist. The term narcissist is often used casually, but in the context of people undeserving of trust, it refers to individuals exhibiting a distinct pattern of grandiosity, an excessive need for admiration, and a profound lack of empathy. Encountering a true narcissist can be a uniquely disorienting and damaging experience. Initially, they can be incredibly charismatic, charming, and attentive. They often engage in love bombing, showering you with affection, compliments, and intense focus, making you feel exceptionally special and understood. This initial phase is designed to draw you into their orbit, securing your admiration and attention, which serves as their primary narcissistic supply. However, this idealized image is unsustainable and masks a fragile ego deeply dependent on external validation. The narcissist world revolves around them. Your role in their life is primarily functional, to reflect a perceived greatness, cater to their needs, and feed their ego. Once the initial charm offensive achieves its goal, or if you cease to provide the required level of admiration, their behavior shifts dramatically. The focus inevitably reverts entirely to them. Conversations become monologues about their achievements, problems, or perceived slights. Your own needs, feelings, and experiences are minimized, dismissed, or ignored altogether. They may react with anger, disdain, or cold indifference if you attempt to assert your own needs, express criticism, even constructive, or draw attention away from them. A defining characteristic of the narcissist is their lack of genuine empathy. While they might feign concern or understanding when it served their purpose, they are fundamentally unable or unwilling to truly connect with or prioritize the emotional states of others. This manifests in exploitative behavior, a sense of entitlement, expecting special treatment without commensurate achievements, and a tendency to view people as objects to be used for their gratification or advancement. They often struggle with boundaries, seeing others as extensions of themselves. When you no longer serve their needs or challenge their self-perception, you may be devalued, discarded, and treated with shocking cruelty or indifference, leaving you feeling confused, betrayed, and emotionally depleted. The cycle of idealization followed by devaluation is common and deeply damaging to the self-worth of those involved with them. Stoicism offers a powerful shield and a clarifying lens through which to understand and interact with narcissistic individuals, primarily by anchoring your sense of self-worth internally and recognizing the limits of your control. The Stoics emphasize self-sufficiency, emotional resilience, and the understanding that our core well-being cannot be dictated by external opinions or treatment. First and foremost, Stoicism teaches that your worth is intrinsic and independent of external validation. Marcus Aurelius reflected, "Does the emerald lose its beauty for lack of admiration? Your value as a person is inherent and derived from your character and virtuous actions, not from the attention or approval bestowed upon you by anyone, especially not by someone whose validation is conditional and self-serving. The narcissist needs your admiration, but you do not need theirs. Internalizing this principle is the most crucial defense. When they shower you with praise, accept it lightly without letting it inflate your ego. When they devalue or ignore you, understand that it reflects their pathology and their needs, not your actual worth. Refuse to see yourself solely through their distorted mirror. Secondly, apply the dichotomy of control. You cannot control the narcissist's grandiosity, their need for supply, their lack of empathy, or their manipulative tactics. These are aspects of their character and behavior external to you. Trying to change them, reason with their lack of empathy, or expect them to suddenly prioritize your needs is often a futile and exhausting endeavor. What you can control is your response, your judgments, your boundaries, and your decision about how much access they have to your life and energy. Focus your efforts here. Third, recognize the pattern and refuse to provide supply. Understanding the dynamics of narcissistic supply is key. Recognize that their charm, anger, pity plays, or demands are often tactics designed to elicit a reaction and draw energy from you. A stoic response involves maintaining composure, apatheia, and refusing to engage in emotional drama they thrive on. Don't feed their need for excessive admiration. Don't get drawn into arguments designed to prove their superiority. Don't exhaust yourself trying to meet their insatiable demands. Respond factually and calmly when necessary, but disengage from the ego-driven games. This isn't about being passive, but about strategically withholding the reactions they seek to control you. Fourth, emphasize strong boundaries. Given their lack of empathy and sense of entitlement, narcissists frequently disregard personal boundaries. Setting and enforcing firm limits is not just advisable, it's essential for self-preservation. This requires clarity about what is acceptable and unacceptable behavior and the courage of stoic virtue to consistently uphold these limits, even when faced with manipulation, rage, or guilt-tripping. Be prepared for them to test or violate these boundaries, and be prepared to reiterate or reinforce them calmly and firmly. In some cases, the most effective boundary may be significant distance or no contact. Finally, cultivate empathy for yourself and justice. While the narcissist lacks empathy, it's important you don't lose yours, especially towards yourself. Recognize the emotional toll these interactions take and practice self-compassion. Acknowledge the hurt, confusion, or anger without letting consume you. Apply the virtue of justice not only by treating others fairly, but also by treating yourself fairly, which includes protecting yourself from harm. It is not unjust or unstoic to distance yourself from someone who consistently causes you harm and disrupts your peace. Your primary duty, according to Stoicism, is to cultivate your own virtue and maintain your inner equilibrium. Giving your energy, trust, and self-worth away to someone incapable of reciprocating genuine respect or care is contrary to this duty. Protect your inner citadel. It is your most valuable possession, and the narcissist is fundamentally ill-equipped to respect its sanctity. 6. The overflatterer. Compliments and praise can be wonderful things. Genuine appreciation, offered sincerely, can brighten our day, boost our confidence, and strengthen social bonds. However, there's a type of individual whose praise flows a little too freely, a little too smoothly, and often a little too strategically. The overflatterer. This person wields compliments like a tool, showering others with excessive, often exaggerated, praise that may feel momentarily good, but leaves a lingering sense of unease or insincerity. Their flattery often seems disproportionate to the situation or achievement, perhaps praising mundane actions as extraordinary feats or lauding qualities they couldn't possibly have observed accurately. The overflatterer is distinct from someone who is genuinely kind and expressive. The key difference lies in the underlying agenda. While genuine compliments aim to uplift or acknowledge, excessive flattery is typically a form of manipulation designed to curry favor, gain trust, lower defenses, or achieve a specific objective. They might flatter a superior to gain advantages at work, praise a potential romantic interest intensely to speed up intimacy, compliment someone's perceived wealth or influence to gain access or favors, or simply use flattery as a default interaction mode to make people like them quickly without genuine connection. The charm offensive is often transparent to discerning observers, but it can be seductive, playing on the natural human desire for approval and recognition. They create an atmosphere of superficial pleasantness, hoping the recipient will be too pleased by the compliments to notice the lack of substance or the hidden motive. The danger of the overflatterer lies in their ability to manipulate perception and gain unearned trust. When someone constantly tells you how brilliant, talented, attractive, or insightful you are, it can be tempting to believe them, even if a part of you senses the insincerity. This can cloud your judgment, making you more susceptible to their influence or requests. You might find yourself liking them and trusting them more than their actions warrant, simply because they make you feel good. This unearned trust can then be exploited. They might leverage the goodwill generated by their flattery to ask for unreasonable favors, borrow money they don't intend to return, gain access to sensitive information, or enlist your support for questionable endeavors. The compliments serve as a smokescreen, distracting from their true intentions or lack of genuine character. When the flattery eventually stops, perhaps because they've achieved their goal or you've ceased to be useful, the hollowness of the interaction becomes apparent, often leaving you feeling foolish or used. Stoicism, with its emphasis on reason, self-awareness, and indifference to externals, provides excellent tools for navigating the potentially manipulative landscape created by the overflatterer. The Stoics were wary of anything that could cloud judgment and distract from virtue, and excessive praise falls squarely into this category. The primary Stoic defense is maintaining rational judgment and perspective. Epictetus warned against being carried away by pleasing appearances or external validation. When faced with excessive flattery, the Stoic approach is to receive it calmly and rationally, without letting it unduly influence your emotions or judgment. Ask yourself, is this praise specific and based on actual observation? Is it proportionate to the situation? Does this person have a pattern of excessive flattery? What might be their underlying motivation? Engage your reason to assess the situation objectively, rather than simply basking in the warmth of the compliment. Secondly, accept compliments with gratitude, but without dependence. A Stoic can appreciate kindness and positive feedback, but their sense of self-worth is not dependent on it. Marcus Aurelius might ask himself, does the praise make the thing praised any better or worse? True value, particularly moral value, is intrinsic. Thank the flatterer politely, acknowledging their words. Thank you. That's kind of you to say, but do not internalize the praise to the point where it becomes a foundation for your self-esteem or your opinion of the flatterer. Remain grounded in your own realistic self-assessment, based on your actions and character. This inner anchor prevents you from being swayed or manipulated by external validation, however effusive. Third, focus on actions over words. Seneca advised judging people by their deeds, not their words. The over-flatterer specializes in pleasant words, but their actions may tell a different story. Do their deeds align with their flattering pronouncements? Are they reliable, honest, and genuinely supportive in ways that go beyond mere compliments? Or does their behavior reveal self-interest and manipulation? Trust should be built on observed consistency and integrity, not on a foundation of sweet talk. Be patient and observe their behavior over time before investing significant trust or resources in the relationship. Fourth, practice prudence, phronesis/wisdom. Wisdom, one of the four cardinal Stoic virtues, involves making sound judgments in practical matters. Dealing with an over-flatterer requires prudence. Recognize the potential for manipulation. Be cautious about requests or propositions that immediately follow a barrage of compliments. Don't feel obligated to reciprocate excessively or grant favors simply because someone has praised you. Maintain healthy skepticism, especially when the flattery seems disproportionate or strategically timed. Finally, cultivate humility. True Stoic humility isn't about self-deprecation, but about having an accurate understanding of oneself, strengths and weaknesses, and recognizing one's place in the larger cosmos. This grounded self-awareness makes one less susceptible to the ego-inflating effects of flattery. If you have a realistic assessment of your abilities and accomplishments, you are less likely to be swept away by exaggerated praise. While genuine appreciation is valuable, the over-flatterer uses praise as a manipulative tool, obscuring their true intentions behind a veil of charm. By applying Stoic principles, maintaining rational judgment, grounding self-worth internally, focusing on actions, exercising prudence, and cultivating humility, you can accept compliments gracefully without falling prey to manipulation. You'll learn to distinguish sincere appreciation from strategic flattery, ensuring that your trust and respect are reserved for those whose actions demonstrate genuine integrity, rather than those who simply excel at saying what they think you want to hear. This discernment protects your judgment and preserves your peace. 7. The envious pretender. Success, achievement, and moments of good fortune are natural parts of life's journey. Ideally, These moments are shared with friends and loved ones who celebrate alongside us, genuinely happy for our progress. However, sometimes we encounter individuals whose congratulations ring hollow, whose smiles seem forced, and whose presence during our triumphs feels strangely uncomfortable. This is the realm of the envious pretender. On the surface, they may say all the right things. Congratulations, I'm so happy for you. You deserve it. But their body language, tone of voice, or a subtle undercurrent in their words betrays a different, darker emotion. Envy. Envy is a complex and corrosive emotion, involving discontent and resentment aroused by someone else's possessions, qualities, or luck. The envious pretender feels this sting when witnessing your success, but instead of acknowledging it honestly or dealing with it internally, they mask it behind a facade of support. Their compliments might feel backhanded. Wow, you got that promotion? They must have been desperate. Or immediately followed by a story minimizing your achievement or highlighting their own, often unrelated, success. They might subtly probe for flaws in your success. Are you sure you can handle that responsibility? Or offer unsolicited concerns disguised as advice aimed at planting seeds of doubt. Their inability to genuinely share in your joy creates an awkwardness, a sense that something is fundamentally misaligned in the interaction. You might leave the conversation feeling vaguely diminished or unsettled, despite having shared good news. The presence of envy in a relationship is toxic because it undermines the foundation of mutual goodwill and support. Genuine friendship requires celebrating each other's victories and supporting each other through challenges. Envy introduces a competitive, zero-sum dynamic where your gain is perceived as their loss. This hidden resentment can manifest in various ways beyond hollow compliments. The envious pretender might subtly sabotage your efforts, spread rumors to tarnish your success, withhold crucial information, or simply withdraw emotionally, unable to bear being around reminders of what they covet. Their pretense of friendship becomes a source of stress and distrust, as you can never be sure if their outward support is genuine or merely a performance masking resentment. Their inability to be happy for you reveals a lack of genuine care and respect. Stoicism offers profound insights and practical strategies for dealing with the envious pretender, focusing on understanding the nature of envy, controlling our reactions, and maintaining our own path with integrity. The Stoics viewed envy as a passion born from faulty judgment. Specifically, the mistaken belief that external goods, like wealth, status, or others' achievements, are essential for happiness, and that lacking them constitutes a personal failing or injustice. First, recognize envy as their burden, not yours. Epictetus taught that we are disturbed not by events, but by our judgments about events. Similarly, the envious pretender is disturbed not by your success itself, but by their judgment about your success and what it means relative to their own situation. Their envy stems from their own insecurities, their own perceived lacks, and a potentially flawed value system that overemphasizes external achievements. Marcus Aurelius might advise recognizing this as their internal struggle. Does another man succeed? That is his affair. He has his own disposition, his own activity. Your success is not an attack on them, and their envy is not a reflection of any wrongdoing on your part. Understanding this helps depersonalize their reaction and prevents you from absorbing their negativity. Second, maintain your composure and respond with equanimity. Do not let their forced smiles or hollow words disrupt your inner peace. A Stoic strives for apatheia, freedom from disturbing passions. Receive their lukewarm congratulations calmly and politely, without needing their genuine enthusiasm to validate your achievement. Avoid reacting defensively or trying excessively to win their sincere approval. This often fuels their internal conflict. Similarly, resist any temptation to flaunt your success in a way that might intentionally provoke their envy. Act with grace and moderation. Your goal is not to change their feelings, which are outside your control, but to manage your own response and maintain your tranquility. Third, focus steadfastly on your own path and purpose. Stoicism emphasizes directing your energy towards your own actions, duties, and character development. Getting drawn into the dynamics of someone else's envy is a distraction from what truly matters. Continue pursuing your goals, acting virtuously, and finding satisfaction in your own efforts and progress, judged by your own internal standards. Let the envious pretender's behavior be a reflection on their character, not a deterrent to your journey. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. In this case, the best response is to remain focused, virtuous, and untroubled by their internal state. Fourth, practice prudence in sharing. While transparency is often valued, wisdom dictates adjusting your level of disclosure based on the listener's character. If you know someone consistently reacts with envy, it may be prudent to be more circumspect when sharing details of your successes with them. This isn't about secrecy out of fear, but about avoiding unnecessary friction and protecting your own peace. Share your joys fully with those who have demonstrated genuine goodwill and the capacity to celebrate with you. With the envious pretender, perhaps a more measured announcement suffices. Fifth, cultivate compassion from a distance if necessary. While protecting yourself from the effects of their envy, Stoicism also encourages understanding human frailty. Recognize that envy is a painful emotion, often rooted in feelings of inadequacy. While you are not responsible for fixing their envy, you can adopt a stance of detached compassion. Understand that their behavior comes from a place of suffering or flawed judgment. This doesn't mean tolerating harmful actions, but it prevents you from descending into reciprocal resentment or anger. You can maintain goodwill towards them as a fellow human, even while recognizing they may not be capable of genuine, supportive friendship regarding your successes. Dealing with an envious pretender requires discernment and emotional regulation. By understanding that their envy is their own struggle, maintaining your composure, focusing on your path, being prudent with your disclosures, and cultivating a degree of detached compassion, you can navigate these interactions without letting their negativity diminish your accomplishments or disturb your inner peace. You affirm that your joy comes from your achievements and virtuous efforts, not from a universal approval of others, especially those grappling with their own discontent. 8. The perpetual victim. Compassion and empathy are cornerstones of a humane and connected society. Offering support to those facing genuine hardship is a mark of good character. However, there exists a type of individual who seems permanently entrenched in a narrative of misfortune, helplessness, and grievance. The perpetual victim. For this person, life is an endless series of unfair events, insurmountable obstacles, and betrayals by others. Nothing ever seems to work out for them. Challenges are always disproportionately difficult, and responsibility always lies elsewhere, with circumstances, with bad luck, or quite often with the people around them. The perpetual victim's defining characteristic is their consistent refusal to take ownership of their situation or their role in it. They recount tales of woe not necessarily to find solutions, but to elicit sympathy, attention, and assistance. They often possess a remarkable ability to frame any situation, even one resulting from their own poor choices or inaction, as something that happened to them. Their conversations are dominated by complaints, sighs, and accounts of how they have been wronged or disadvantaged. They may resist suggestions for improvement or solutions, quickly finding reasons why those won't work. Yes, but their identity seems deeply intertwined with their suffering. Being a victim is not just a temporary state, but a core part of how they see themselves and interact with the world. Engaging with perpetual victim can be incredibly draining. Initially, your natural empathy might compel you to listen, offer comfort, and provide help. However, you soon realize that your efforts yield no lasting change. The narrative of victimhood persists, and the demands on your time, energy, and emotional resources become relentless. You might find yourself constantly cast in the role of rescuer, therapist, or fixer, expected to absorb their negativity and provide endless validation for their sense of grievance. This dynamic is inherently unbalanced and unsustainable. It can lead to compassion fatigue, frustration, resentment, and guilt. Guilt for feeling drained, guilt for wanting to pull back, guilt for not being able to fix their perpetual state of crisis. They expertly leverage this guilt to keep you engaged, making it difficult to set boundaries without feeling like you are abandoning someone in need. Stoicism provides a crucial counterperspective to the victim mindset, emphasizing personal responsibility, resilience, and the power of internal judgment. The Stoics believe that while we cannot always control external events, we have absolute control over our responses and judgments, and it is these internal factors that ultimately determine our well-being. The foremost Stoic principle here is taking ownership, agency. Epictetus stressed that true freedom comes from recognizing what is within our control, our judgments, impulses, actions, and what is not external events, others' actions, our bodies. The perpetual victim consistently externalizes responsibility, thereby paradoxically relinquishing their own power to effect change. A Stoic approach recognizes that even in genuinely difficult circumstances, we retain the power to choose our response, to learn, to adapt, to endure with courage, or to seek constructive solutions. While acknowledging real hardships, Stoicism rejects the passive helplessness central to the victim narrative. Secondly, distinguish between compassion and enabling. Compassion is a virtue, but it must be applied with wisdom. Offering a listening ear or temporary support to someone genuinely struggling is appropriate. However, consistently reinforcing a victim narrative by offering endless sympathy without encouraging agency, or by constantly rescuing someone from the consequences of their own inaction or poor choices, becomes enabling. This doesn't help them grow. It reinforces their helplessness. A Stoic approach might involve offering support that empowers rather than enables, perhaps helping them brainstorm solutions they can implement themselves, or guiding them towards resources, but refusing to take over responsibility for their problems. Thirdly, protect your emotional resources and set boundaries. Your peace of mind, ataraxia, and energy are valuable resources. Allowing them to be constantly depleted by the negativity and demands of a perpetual victim is detrimental to your own well-being and your ability to fulfill your own duties. Stoicism teaches the importance of safeguarding your inner citadel. It is entirely reasonable and necessary to set boundaries on the amount of time and emotional energy you dedicate to listening to complaints or solving their problems. This might involve limiting contact duration, gently redirecting conversations toward solutions or other topics, or clearly stating your own limitations. I can listen for a few minutes, but then I need to focus on my work. Or, I'm sorry you're going through that, but I'm not able to get involved in solving it this time. Upholding these boundaries requires the virtue of courage. Fourth, challenge your own judgments. The perpetual victim often relies on triggering guilt in others. Examine your own feelings of obligation or guilt. Are they rational? Are you truly responsible for this person's happiness or situation? Stoicism encourages us to analyze our emotional responses. Guilt is often rooted in a judgment. Perhaps a judgment that you should be able to fix their problems, or that setting boundaries is unkind. Challenge these judgments. Recognize that you cannot control another person's choices or mindset, and that preserving your own well-being is a valid and necessary goal. True kindness does not require self-sacrifice to the point of exhaustion, especially when that sacrifice yields no positive change. Finally, model responsibility and resilience. Instead of getting drawn into their narrative, embody the Stoic principles of resilience and responsibility in your own life and conversations. Focus on constructive action, problem solving, and acceptance of what cannot be changed. While avoiding lectures, your own grounded approach can serve as a subtle counterpoint to their victim mentality. Sometimes, the most helpful thing you can offer is a different perspective, demonstrated through your own way of navigating challenges. Dealing with perpetual victim requires a delicate balance of compassion and firm boundaries, guided by Stoic wisdom. It involves recognizing the pattern of externalized blame and helplessness, distinguishing between helpful support and harmful enabling, protecting your own vital emotional resources, examining any irrational guilt, and focusing on the Stoic ideal of taking responsibility for one's own judgments and responses. By doing so, you can maintain compassion without sacrificing your own strength and peace, refusing to become a permanent supporting character in their never-ending drama of victimhood. 9. The harsh judge. In our interactions, we inevitably form opinions and make assessments. Discernment is a necessary skill for navigating the world. However, there's a type of person whose assessments consistently veer into harsh, condemnatory judgment, often delivered with an air of moral superiority and little room for nuance or understanding. The harsh judge is quick to find fault, quick to condemn, and slow, often entirely unwilling, to consider context, mitigating factors, or alternative perspectives. They seem to possess a rigid set of rules and expectations for how others should think, behave, and live, and they readily dispense criticism and disapproval when others fall short of these arbitrary standards. The harsh judge often presents their critiques as objective truths or righteous indignation. They might have an opinion on everything, from your career choices and parenting style to your taste in clothes or the way you handle minor setbacks. Their judgments are frequently unsolicited and delivered with a certainty that brooks no argument. They may employ black and white thinking, categorizing actions and people as simply good or bad, right or wrong, ignoring the vast complexities of human experience. While they might claim to be upholding standards or speaking difficult truths, their primary mode of interaction is often critical, focusing on flaws and deviations rather than strengths or common ground. They rarely apply the same level of harsh scrutiny to themselves, often exhibiting a clear double standard. Interacting with a harsh judge can be deeply unpleasant and emotionally taxing. Constantly being subjected to their critical gaze and negative pronouncements can make you feel defensive, inadequate, scrutinized, and misunderstood. It can stifle open communication, as you become hesitant to share your thoughts, experiences, or vulnerabilities for fear of inviting judgment. Their negativity can create an atmosphere of tension and disapproval, making interactions feel like walking through a minefield. Furthermore, their rigid certainty and lack of empathy can be isolating, making genuine connection difficult. You might find yourself questioning your own choices or feeling pressure to conform to their standards, even when those standards feel unreasonable or misaligned with your own values. Stoicism provides a powerful antidote to the impact of the harsh judge, primarily by teaching us to understand the nature of judgment, to focus on our own sphere of control, and protect our inner peace from external assaults. The Stoics themselves practiced self-examination rigorously, but they advocated for understanding and forbearance when dealing with the faults of others. First, recognize that judgment often reveals more about the judge. A core Stoic insight, echoed by Marcus Aurelius, is that people act based on their own understanding or misunderstanding of what is good and bad. The harsh judge's tendency to condemn others often stems from their own insecurities, fears, rigid worldview, or perhaps their own internal struggles projected outward. Their harshness is a reflection of their character, their judgments, and their inner state, not an objective assessment of your worth or actions. When you hear their criticism, remind yourself, this is their opinion, arising from their perspective and their judgments. This mental distancing helps neutralize the sting. Second, apply the dichotomy of control. The harsh judge's opinions and pronouncements are external to you and outside your direct control. You cannot force them to be more understanding, empathetic, or nuanced. Wasting energy trying to convince them they are wrong or seeking their approval is often futile and leads only to frustration. What is within your control is your own assessment of the situation, your response to their judgment, and whether you allow their words to disturb your inner peace. Focus your energy on managing your own reactions, not on changing their entrenched mindset. Third, practice forbearance and understanding, not acceptance of harm. Marcus Aurelius frequently advised himself to be tolerant of others' failings, recognizing common human fallibility. When a man has done thee any wrong, immediately consider with what opinion about good or evil he has done wrong. For when thou hast seen this, thou wilt pity him, and wilt be neither surprised nor angry. Understanding that the harsh judge likely operates from flawed assumptions or inner turmoil allows for a degree of detached compassion or pity, rather than anger or defensiveness. This doesn't mean you must agree with them or tolerate abusive behavior, but it shifts your internal response from personal injury to objective observation of another's flawed way of being. Fourth, filter their input, seek wisdom, discard noise. While the delivery is poor, occasionally a harsh judge might inadvertently touch upon a point worth considering. Apply Stoic discernment. Calmly evaluate the substance of their criticism, separate from the harsh tone. Is there any objective truth or useful feedback hidden within the judgment? If so, consider it rationally. If not, if it's merely opinion, projection, or based on faulty premises, recognize it as noise and refuse to internalize it. You are under no obligation to accept or be wounded by every opinion fired your way. Protect your inner peace by being a discerning gatekeeper of the information you allow to affect you. Fifth, set boundaries and limit exposure. If someone's constant harsh judgment consistently disrupts your peace and well-being, it is wise and necessary to set boundaries. This might involve stating clearly that you are not open to receiving unsolicited criticism on certain topics. I appreciate your concern, but I'm not looking for feedback on my parenting choices right now. It might mean limiting the time you spend with them or keeping conversations focused on neutral subjects. In persistent cases, significantly distancing yourself might be the most effective way to protect your tranquility. Your mental and emotional health is important, and safeguarding it from relentless negativity is a rational and virtuous act. Finally, focus on your own conduct. Ensure your own actions are aligned with Stoic virtues: justice, courage, temperance, wisdom. When you are confident that you are acting rightly and to the best of your ability according to your own well-reasoned principles, the judgments of others, especially harsh and unfounded ones, lose much of their power. Live according to your own internal compass, not in reaction to the external judgments of those who appoint themselves arbiters of your life. The harsh judge creates ripples of negativity with their condemnatory approach. By applying Stoic principles, understanding the source of their judgment, focusing on what you control, practicing forbearance, filtering their input wisely, setting firm boundaries, and anchoring yourself in your own virtuous conduct, you can significantly diminish their power to disturb your inner peace. You learn to navigate their criticism with equanimity, preserving your self-respect and emotional equilibrium in the face of their harshness. It's not about pushing people away. It's about choosing wisely. Your energy, your attention, your trust, they're sacred. Stoicism teaches us to guard them with intention. So ask yourself, who in your life adds peace? Who disrupts it? Choose to rise above manipulation, drama, and negativity. Respect starts with you. And when you stop giving it to those who haven't earned it, something powerful happens. You reclaim your inner freedom. If you found this helpful, like the video, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs this reminder. Stay grounded, stay calm, and as always, choose wisdom over chaos.